What's up, everybody? This is Hassan Shabazz from Second Life Connections Health and Wellness. Back with you with yet another video. Today's video is Man Means Mind. We're going to go in further on the concept of man as a thinking being. This comes from a this comes from a portion of chapter 1 of the book Overstanding the Law of Profusion by myself. This book is a summary of some of the greatest success teachings of all time. I tried to compact and summarize from many different authors. If you want a copy of this book, you can contact me at hassanaskia at hotmail.com. You can go to lulu.com. You can go to amazon.com, Barnes and Nobles, and just type in Hassan Shabazz books, and it'll give you a list of available books. So we're going to look at a section from the book, Overstanding the Law of Profusion, and a section entitled Select the Things that Go into Your Mind. We're going to begin with a quote. It says, one who allows lies to grow him into falsehood is growing out of the nature of the natural world. This is a quote from W.D. Muhammad, June 20, 1975. W.D. Muhammad was one of the most inspirational, or the most diligent fighters for peace. He was a member of many peace councils. He also believed in close connections between the different faiths. He believed that he was a strong champion of interfaith between Muslims, Christians, Jews, Buddhists, all the people of the book. And he also was the son of Elijah Muhammad, the late leader of the Nation of Islam, and the mentor of Malcolm X Shabazz. So we begin this section. It says, this is coming from another, we're going to look at another quote by W.D. Muhammad. W.D. Muhammad revealed the secret and the power of words on the subconscious in April 1975 lecture in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He asked, what do we mean by language? Look at the number 1 and the number 2. You may not call these words, but in God's wisdom, I am right words. Those numbers are seen as words even in the wisdom of the wise of this world. A word is that which brings a message to your mind. Everything that I am doing is bringing a message to your mind. You don't call these words, but they are. What you're doing now is getting words. When the baby comes from the mother, the eyes open and the baby sees something when the eyes are open. While the word being spoken to the child has received my words. The images that the child sees are words going into the mind of the child. Everything in your environment is words speaking to your mind, forming you in the body. The books you read, the language of your parents, the talk you heard in the home, the words you heard in the streets, the physical things that you looked at and thought about, the physical things that you looked at and didn't think about are all words. All these things have acted as words, gone into your mind, formed you, and they are forming you for as long as you live in this world. The process of making or forming human beings never stops. It goes on all the time. If you don't want yourself to be created in ill, weak, bad, ugly, or diseased forms, you have to get wise in the language of the environment and start selecting the things that you want to go into your mind. Then he also said in June 20th, 1975, and this same June 20th, he said in the June 20th, 1975 lecture, the first lecture was April 1975, and in the June 1975 lecture, he says, you should become men and women who seek truth and knowledge instead of material toys. If a man has wisdom, he does not worry and crave for the glitter of the gin world or the material world. If you take everything he has and leaves him physically naked, pretty soon he will have more clothes, another car, another home. His wealth is not on his finger or on his physical body. His wealth is inside the real body, the divine body. It is the forces of nature in the physical body that manifest urges or desires. If your mind cannot handle these urges, the urges grow in power to overcome you. God made us as mind, as intellect, and as divine being to be ruling the earth. He tells us in the Bible and the Holy Quran to subdue and conquer everything in the heavens, everything in the earth, and everything that is in ourselves. He also said in a book entitled The Teachings of W. Muhammad, he says, the human life of the human nature whose eye opens to the world and says, I must make my own world from the creation given to me by the Creator. Every creature makes its world. The Divine Supreme gives it a supreme pattern and all the materials needed for making its world, but He Himself is not going to make it for you. He gives you the nature and the mind, and He opens your eyes to His great doing. Then He challenges you by telling you to make your own. So, God gives us everything we need to be successful, but He's not going to do it for us. We have to do it. We have to take the first step. It's up to us to make it happen. Now let's look at the subsection entitled "Man Means Mind." In this section, we begin by stating the mind, according to Frederick J. Eichenkoller II, who is also known as Reverend Ike. He said that the mind, or the mind's eye, is the esoteric visual faculty of God and man. God creates through the imagination of man. To put it another way, man, through his mental faculties, is able to focus and create constructs in his mind that later manifest in the real or the material world. We make our world through visualization and the things we think about all the time. Earl Nightingale, one of the leading self-development gurus of our time, states, whatever we plant in our subconscious mind and nourish with repetition and emotion will one day become a reality. Wallace Wall explains this concept even further on page 14 in his book, The Science of Getting Rich. He says, no, and I quote, no thought or form can be impressed upon original substance without causing the creation of the form. For those who know what original substance is, he's talking about matter. He's talking about the thinking stuff is matter, energy. Everything in the creation was created from the same matter, the same energy. It just vibrates on a different level. Wallace Wallace explains this concept further on page 14 of his book, The Science of Getting Rich. And he says, no thought or form can be impressed upon original substance without causing the creation of the form. Man is a thinking center and can originate thought. All the forms that man fashions with his hands must first exist in his thought. He cannot shape a thing until he has thought that thing. You cannot accomplish anything or do anything without first having that thought in your mind to do that thing. That's simple as getting up and get some water. You think about in your subconscious, I want some water. So you get up and you go get water. So everything that we see in creation comes from the mind of some human. All, to summarize, to repeat, all the forms that man fashions, when I said man, I'm talking about woman too, that man fashions with his hands must first exist in his thought. He cannot shape a thing until he has thought that thing. Now, let's go further. We're gonna have another quote from W.D. Muhammad, and this is the quote that we taught this particular stream, Man Means Mind. And this comes from a lecture that was compiled and put in a book called The Teaching of W.D. Muhammad. And in this article from this lecture, which also appeared in the newspaper called the Muslim Journal, was also known as Muhammad Speaks, he states, concerning man, a great knowledge that we have been teaching you is that words make people. People are the products of words. A human being doesn't start to form in the flesh until the words reach the ear or the eye or affect the senses in some way of that human being. And in that book, he summarized by saying that man means mind. Rene Descartes, a famous Latin philosopher, said, I think, therefore I am. And we know the famous saying, as a man thinketh, so is he. So, we must constantly guard what goes into our minds. As Earl Nightingale stated, we become what we think about all the time. So we must change our thinking to change our life. Everything begins with a thought. The famous writer, Ralph Waldo Emerson, is quoted saying, life consists of what a man is thinking about all day. You are what you think about. We are what we allow to occupy our minds. What we think determines who we are, and who we are determines what we do. Our minds are receiving stations and transmitters. John Locke, a very famous author, said, the actions of men are the best interlopers he said the actions of men are the best interlopers of their thoughts. James Allen, a famous philosopher, has said, you are today where your thoughts have brought you. You will be tomorrow where your thoughts take you. So simply, if we want to improve our lot in life, we have to improve our thinking. We have to read. And the one way to improve your thinking is to read. Clear your mind. But all to clear your mind of old concepts, you have to put new concepts into your mind. Don't be afraid to grow. Don't be afraid to elevate your thought process. Don't be afraid to evolve mentally. Don't be afraid to evolve spiritually. So we'll leave you with that. We just want to read a portion of the book, a small section. I want to read one more quote from this. It says, William Arthur Ward has said, nothing limits achievement like small thinking. Nothing expands possibilities like unleashed thinking. And Albert Einstein said, thinking is hard work. That's why so few do it. So if you start to think, that'll separate you from the herd. That'll help you get above the pack. Because most people don't think. So if you start thinking, you start using your mind, you start to become a thinker, begin to analyze things, that will move you ahead of the pack. So we're going to close with that. Hope you got something from this little talk, a reminder. We want you to really use your mind. Your mind is a terrible thing to waste. Don't waste your mind. Use your mind. Think. Develop your mind. Read. Study. Take advantage of the great abundance of knowledge that's available. And we'll close with one more saying. Napoleon Hill said, more gold has been mined from the thoughts of man than has ever been taken from the earth. So, we encourage you to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, share the video, leave a comment, and remember that man means mind. Man is a thinking being. I think it, therefore I am. Peace.